Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. And today we have another set of brand new crazy revenge stories for you. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave comments so we know what kind of stories you love the most. Don't crap on your own doorstep. So I live on a little street with about 7 houses. We're the only student housing in the area, so we're often a target for people looking to make quick money by blaming us because they think it's easy to get us into trouble. This lady thought wrong. The cast is DB, our neighbor, aka Dumb B, TB, my housemate, a genuine teddy bear, CW is council worker, and me is many earthworms. So I'm walking back from university when I'm accosted by a middle-aged woman in her dressing gown and slippers. Hey, you! I stop because I'm trying to be polite to the neighbors. The locals have a location hate students group who vandalize student property and try to make us leave, so I tend to overcompensate to make our household look good. Hi, how are you? You vandalized my car! Are you seeing the irony here? I cross the road to where DB is standing and where her car is parked and say, "Pardon?" You dumb B, did you not hear me? I said you vandalized my car! I knew she was really trying to say that I vandalized her car when I was on the other side of the road, and she knew that. I'm sorry, I think you've got the wrong person. She points at a huge scrape down the side of her car, and I wince. That poor thing must have been beaten up pretty badly. But I had nothing on me that I could have inflicted that kind of damage with. I explained that the binman destroyed my moped, still in for repairs, so they might have caught her car too, and her eyes lit up. A moped? So you're the little C-word who parks on my driveway. Our house has a driveway big enough for 4 cars and is obviously right outside my house. So I tell her, no, I've not been parking on her drive, especially because my bike was destroyed and has been gone for over 2 weeks. You're a liar! She's like spitting in my face at this point. I have photos of your bike blocking my driveway from 3 days ago. That's why I was parked in the road, and that's why my car got totaled. Okay, I nod. May I see the photos? She's all too happy to whip out her phone and show me the photos of what she proudly believes to be my moped. A fire engine red piece of scrap that, to be honest, was well beyond saving even before the bin men mangled her. Except it isn't my bike. Ma'am, I hate to be rude, but that's a mobility scooter. Cue the screaming and shouting about rude teenagers, I'm like 21, and how we university students always disrespect the locals. She tells me that I must think she's an idiot. I do, for thinking that she's wrong about my bike. She was. So I take a deep breath and say, "Ma'am, I'm in a rush. But you really are wrong about the bike. Maybe ask the next-door neighbor, a kind old lady who owns that mobility scooter but is a little forgetful about why she parks her scooter on your drive." I walk away and think nothing of it. Except now she's left her totaled car on our private property instead of her own drive after running our fence that blocks the drive down and complaining to our landlady about antisocial behavior. There isn't any, by the way. We are 4 reclusive students who stay in all night watching Netflix with our headphones in, and she's also like 5 houses down from us, so she definitely wouldn't be able to hear the noise she was describing. Pretty much the whole neighborhood is shunning us at this point, as DB has been spreading lies about our behavior, telling everyone we vandalized her property. So it's only fair that she uses our driveway as compensation. I feel responsible for her behavior, as I should have shut her down immediately rather than letting this drag out. So I sit in my room, nothing new there, and hatch a plan. The next morning, I walk past her house and watch as DB lets her dog out. Watch it take a crap on the public pavement, then walk past and walk away. Bingo. According to our local council, this is an offense she can get fined for, as it's vandalism and obstruction of council property. So every morning as I walk to my train, I take a photo of the turds. Some fresh, some crusty, some smeared across the pavement by some poor sod who stood in it. Then I email everything to my local counselor, who's fuming that someone fully able-bodied is allowing their dog to do this without cleaning it up. She gets fined £1,000 with the threat of more if she continues to do so. I heard this from my neighbor, as she was friends with CW, who handled the case. And guess what? She did. And the more that dog pooped, the more I reported it. She racked up £4,000 in fines just for dog crap alone, and I didn't even report her for trespassing on private property. But apparently she'd spoken to CW, who was a newbie, and pressured him until he let slip that a neighbor had reported it, and she, of course, happened to, 1, realize it was me, and 2, know where I effing live. She hammered on my door, screaming about how she was going to drown my cat. I don't have one. My neighbor's cat loves me, though. Smash my window, then catch me when I was walking home. Now, TB is also a recluse. I've said in previous posts that he basically stays in his room and only leaves to go to uni or grab a beer and some food. But he is PO'd at the way this lady is screaming at me. He stomps downstairs, opens the door. While she's mid-scream, he glares down at her. He's 6'7" and a rugby player, so he's basically a walking muscle. If I didn't know that he liked to cry at anime while hugging us on the sofa, I'd think he was terrifying. But this lady wasn't privy to that information. So she looks up at this angry, massive northerner and just trembles as he says in a very low, threatening voice, "You need to get off our property and take your dog. If you so much as blink at rightly snitch, and I hear about it, I'll not only call the council for the dog crap you flung on our driveway, but I'll call the police for the damage to property and harassment. Now F off, lady." Safe to say, she ran faster than I've ever seen her run. Last week I heard from the neighbor that CW had sold her car for scrap. She never got the thing fixed, just to pay the eventual 4,200 pounds in fine she'd racked up. And every time I walk to the train station and see that mobility scooter parked on her drive, it feels like another little win. And our next story. Cause me hassle on moving out? I'll cause you 50 grand in home repairs. So this happened a few years ago when I was still new and ignorant to renting apartments. My landlord was a right piece of work and violated so many laws, but again I was new to the whole thing, and he knew that and took advantage of my ignorance. I'd lived in one place which I really enjoyed and signed a renter's agreement with the landlord. Then after 2 months he said I had to leave because I made too much money. I loved this place and was paying a very decent rent, but he said not to worry, he owned another building that had an available apartment and I could move into it. Begrudgingly, I made the move over there. It wasn't as nice of a place by far, though it still had the same amount of rooms, a bedroom and a smaller office, so I figured I couldn't complain, and he charged me the same rent, though I never signed anything for this place. He just literally switched keys with me. The new place was kind of gross, though. Cracks in the walls, black mold growing in certain corners. The bathroom door literally didn't close. The radiator leaked water, and the toilet, well, let's just say it wasn't the same color on the inside as it was on the outside. As the months went on, I began to notice things were different when I'd come back from work. Sometimes it would just be a, "Did I leave those papers like that?" to, "There's muddy footprints here." I figured out he'd been coming into my place when I wasn't around. And that was the last straw. With the support of my boss, who's actually a really good friend, I began looking for a new place with a different landlord. I finally did and told my boss I was unsure if I should put in notice or what. He asked if I signed a lease or papers or anything, and I said no. His words were, "F it, pack your crap and move." Therein lies the most stressful move I've ever experienced. I didn't own a lot of things, but what I had meant a lot to me. I'd earned it. I had my best friend there helping me pack up my stuff. My best friend was also my boss's wife, and 2 of their children. We got through a small amount of loading things up when Mr. Butthead Landlord got tipped off. He then kicked my friend off his property and told me that if I left the apartment, he would change the locks and not let me back in. Keep in mind, this is not before the end of the month. I'd already paid for the entire month. So I sat in my apartment crying, trying to figure out what to do. I called my boss, who was coming quickly because his wife and kids were there, and one of my brothers, and I was scared to leave the apartment. I didn't want to lose any of my things. After my reinforcements came, the landlord backed off, and quickly I got all of my important things out of there, though I made sure someone was always inside the apartment at all times. Before leaving, however, I took some pictures of the mold, cracks, and other disgusting things around my place. A few days after settling into my new place, I went to City Hall and the Health and Safety Board, showed them the pictures. Well, it turns out they were just as interested in them as I was. Nearly a year later, I ran across one of my old neighbors from inside the building, an older lady that lived just below me. We made quick pleasantries, and she asked if I had ever heard what happened after I left. I said no, as my new place was in the next town over, so I don't really frequent the neighborhood anymore. Apparently, thanks to the lovely pictures I sent in, my landlord was investigated and forced to do over $50,000 worth of repairs on the building. And our last story. Roommate was stealing my marked leftovers. Title's pretty straightforward, but I'll elaborate. My old college roommate didn't know how to cook or do dishes and didn't go food shopping much. This led to him eating my food, especially my leftovers, as those were prepared meals. I would use my leftovers to meal prep for the week and told him to stop as it was expensive as well as inconvenient. The behavior did not stop, and he actually seemed to be eating more of my food out of spite. To punish him, I baked a chocolate cake with habanero peppers and mixed the frosting with wasabi. I labeled it with my name and a bold "Do not eat" and waited. This guy has a very low tolerance for spicy foods, so I thought he'd take one bite quickly and realize the error of his ways. About 2 days later, him and a couple of friends got really drunk while I was at work and decided to dig into my food. Somehow, they ate about a third of it before realizing. And when the inevitable went to throw up from over-drinking and eating spicy foods, he got hit by the cake a second time. Don't know for sure, but it couldn't have felt good coming out the back end. When he asked why I made this monstrosity, I told him I found a chocolate habanero recipe online that I wanted to try. He stopped eating my cooking after that. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.